Happy Thursday, everyone. What's going on? Welcome to Good Mic Work Commentaries. We're here with a fun Thursday afternoon podcast and stream. Thought I would come up here and discuss last night's amazing AEW Dynamite Fyter Fest Night 1 was just a terrific show from top to bottom with a really hot crowd, and they even pulled in a really awesome rating today. We're also going to discuss a little bit of NXT and what direction they're heading in as it relates to Karrion Kross and Samoa Joe. And we had some big news just break within the hour regarding SummerSlam and a big name possibly appearing on the show. Pretty much a spoiler. He is going to appear, and I guess the angle is going to be kicking off this coming Monday, and you can see him right there in the bottom left-hand corner of the template or the overlay there. There he is in all his big, bad, bald goatee glory. My dad, Goldberg, is looking like he's heading back to fulfill his contractual obligations to a match or two a year that he has signed through, I believe, next year. So even though we got Goldberg back briefly this year at the Royal Rumble, losing to Drew, looks like we're going to get him back again. And if WWE's paying him just to come in and do jobs, fine. But man, this shit makes me nervous every time they do this, because if they did what they did to The Fiend with Goldberg, then they'll do it to anybody. And, Lashley apparently is the rumored opponent for Bill. And if he's just there to face the champion again, like he did with McIntyre, fine. But one can argue, why the hell does this legend just keep walking back in the door and getting title shots when he's losing them all? Dropped a lot of matches in a row, to Braun Strowman, then Drew McIntyre. If he comes in here, assuming, things would go the way they should, he should be losing to Bobby Lashley as well. And if Goldberg's cool with that, and that's what WWE wants to pay him to do, that's fine. But I don't think, Goldberg is needed, even without Brock. If this is kind of a substitute because they're going to hold off Brock until later this year or perhaps next year around WrestleMania time, or he's just not coming back now for whatever reason, I don't think you need to fill that void with Goldberg. I think you can fill that with anybody else. It doesn't need to be some sort of legend to bring in, whether it's a big show or not. I'm going to be at SummerSlam. I'm ready to see all that. I don't need Goldberg there. I will go regardless. I would buy a ticket regardless if Goldberg was going to be there or not. So I think that, you could put anybody else in that situation and the show will be fine. But apparently WWE is going to have Goldberg come out on Monday night and potentially challenge Bobby Lashley. This news is courtesy Fightful Select, just came out about an hour ago, and I'm just going to read you their quick little article here, their quick little paragraph on the situation here, then we'll elaborate on it more here in just a minute. But they had made a post about an hour or so ago about this spoiler and major return at SummerSlam and the plans for that, and I quote, WWE appears to be pulling out all the stops for fans returning to shows. Fightful has learned that as of Thursday, WWE's plan was for Bill Goldberg to return on Monday and to set up an eventual match with Bobby Lashley targeted for SummerSlam. Goldberg has a contract set for 2 matches per year through next year, and this would be his second of 2021. So if you need to burn off this match somewhere, and it needs to happen because, of course, the fans are going to complain, oh, we don't need this. And I agree, you don't. But if it's in his fucking contract, then they're going to have to use him out there somewhere. And if they just want to have him come out, lose, that can be positive when you have a champion that's kind of new. I mean, even though Lashley's 44 years old, he finally got on the map in terms of a world champion in WWE this year. So having big matches and big opponents and big victories under his belt will look good on his resume. I think that's a large part why they had Goldberg job to Drew. So think about this before we immediately fly off the rails and being upset that Goldberg is there. Goldberg is not my favorite. I don't want him anywhere near SummerSlam if it was up to me, but at least if they're going to use Goldberg, they're not doing what they did in Saudi Arabia or having him come in and just, win random matches or put him right at the top. At least they're using him to put over their current champions, and that's not all bad. It's just, sometimes the timing of this stuff is really what kind of, I think annoys the fans because it comes across as WWE feeling like they don't have enough in-house talent to be able to sustain a SummerSlam with 50,000 people or whatever, when I believe they do. As soon as those tickets went on sale, I went up and bought them. I didn't know one fucking match on the card yet. I wasn't buying it for Cena or Roman or anybody. I want to go to SummerSlam. It's going to be fun. So I don't know why WWE has this line of thinking and why they even signed Bill Goldberg to deals like this at all to begin with. But it's there. It's got it in his contract. They really have no way around it. And if this is what they're going to use him for, it's better than have him come in like it did at a couple SummerSlams ago and just randomly beat Dolph Ziggler. You know what I mean? At least here, if he's going to come in and work with the champion, chances are he's going to lose, because if he only has 2 contracted matches per year, how the fuck is he going to have a title run? Unless he alters that arrangement or alters that agreement. And I don't think that with fans coming back, Goldberg is something that they're going to need to see. I think the fans are going to be happy to be back without him, and WWE just better be careful if that's what the plan will be for this coming Monday. So I figured we'd open up with that right away, just get that out of the way. Goldberg potentially coming back. We might see him this coming Monday. Of course, we know big weekend here for us in WWE land anyway, because the fans are back starting on Friday on SmackDown. Going to be a packed house there. Energy's probably going to be pretty good. We do have a women's title match now on SmackDown instead of Money in the Bank, with Bianca Belair taking on Carmella. And the show should be pretty decent and pretty fun in front of fans. And then right after that, of course, we've got Money in the Bank. And then on Raw, fans are back. So the Thunderdome is no more. We said goodbye to it on Monday night. I wasn't even here to do a review. I took this past week off because I knew they had taped Raw. The match lineup looked pretty good, but still, I didn't think we were going to see anything too earth-shattering on the go-home show. So I decided just to sit that one out. Didn't even watch the show. The only thing I saw was the end when they did the Lashley MVP stuff, which we'll talk a little bit about here in a minute. But I figured it was be a fitting tribute to the Thunderdome for me just to not watch it, just because it was just a terrible era. I have very few fond memories of this past year and a half at all, as it pertains to the pandemic wrestling, Thunderdome, empty arena, all that stuff. I'm going to look back on this time period not very fondly at all. So I thought just not watching that final one was kind of nice. A lot of people were hoping they were going to tear up the Thunderdome or blow it up. I kind of explained before why that couldn't happen, because they taped they taped Raw before SmackDown. And on Friday, SmackDown, the Thunderdome was fully operational. So you knew they didn't destroy it in the taping because they still had one more show to do. But I thought it would have been cool if they maybe taped something after SmackDown, maybe did more of Lashley and just spliced it in, with this past week's Raw, where Lashley is so mad, not only at MVP, that not only is he throwing couches out of the ring, but he's just going around and single-handedly destroying the entire Thunderdome. Maybe even do like a time lapse of showing Lashley going all over the arena, just ripping shit down out of pure anger. Would have been funny. But the Thunderdome is no more, at least for right now, until we get the next pandemic, until we get a variant, until we get another virus or whatever. At least things are kind of back to normal starting this week. And if last night and the past couple of AEW shows were any indication, fans, I think, are ready to be back. And the crowd they had last night for Fyter Fest was off the hook. So I'm excited, at least for WWE. Not that just having fans there is going to change their shitty booking and their storytelling. It's not, but it's going to help, and it's going to help WWE at least hopefully start gauging a little bit better of who's really over and who's not. Not that has ever stopped them from pushing or de-pushing people from it before. If fans boo people, they tend to get a push. If fans clamor for people, they tend to be sitting and catering. It's just the way WWE does things now. But based on the year and a half we've had, I can't see how things can't get at least a little bit better with the fans coming back. So it's going to be a big week here on the channel. On Saturday, we'll be up here for another short podcast. We'll talk about Friday Night SmackDown, whatever went on there, and we will fully predict Money in the Bank for Sunday. We'll do that on Saturday. We'll fully predict Sunday's Money in the Bank on Saturday and run through the entire card there. And then on Sunday, on pay-per-view day, I'm going to do a live reaction because it's an unpredictable pay-per-view, much like Royal Rumble. There's a lot to kind of watch there, and I think doing a live reaction would be more fun than me sitting here writing down spots in the ladder matches, because as of right now, unless they add something Friday, I think we only have a 5-match card here. We have the 2 big title matches, Universal and WWE. the 2 Money in the Bank matches, and then we have Rhea Ripley and Charlotte. I think that's it. So it's not a whole lot. So I figured that would be a fun one. Just come up here, drink some beer, watch craziness, and watch unpredictable moments unfold before our eyes. I think that's going to be cool. So keep that in mind for Sunday. I will have links to all of this stuff up probably by tomorrow. So just check this channel for Saturday's link for the predictions and Sunday's link for the live reaction. And then on Sunday, we'll stay up a little bit after and review the show. And then the day after that will be Monday Night Raw, the first Raw back with fans. Apparently, when Goldberg is supposed to make his return, we'll be up here for a full review on Monday. So you get me 4 out of the next 5 days. Make a note, click the notifications bell, subscribe, all that stuff. If you could smash the thumbs up button for me, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm going to say hi to everybody in the chat. And then we'll move on to some other wrestling news, maybe elaborate a little bit more in ideas for Goldberg. I also want to pay tribute to Paul Orndorff, and then I want to get into what took place this past week on NXT. Not the whole show, just the main angle. A couple things I want to mention about the show, but really I want to talk about Samoa Joe and Karrion Kross and some writing that might be on the wall with those two guys there. We'll have to see how that plays out. And then, of course, last night's AEW Dynamite Fyter Fest Night 1 was incredible, and they pulled in over 1 million viewers for that show, which is just a amazingly positive development, especially when 2 weeks ago Raw drew a 1.4. You know, they did a 1.0. Like I said, they ain't far off. This ain't like it was when it was Raw versus Impact, where we're talking double, triple the ratings here. You know, they're competing. And, you know, especially with how bad Raw is, when AEW puts on a good show like that, you know, I mean, that could be the difference maker. You know, back in the day, for people to tune to the other show, you had to have stars showing up there like Hall and Nash and the Outsiders and all that stuff. And even when Hogan and Savage went to WCW, it sparked some curiosity. You don't really have situations like that now, although you have seen Miro and Aleister Black and guys like that jump, but no major defections that's really like kind of tip the scales now. You know, what AEW needs to do to kind of get attention and draw eyeballs is just to give us better professional wrestling than WWE. And when it comes just to a packed show, a 2-hour show, when you analyze it from top to bottom, the matches, the excitement, the promos, the storytelling, all of that, it's just done better. You know, at least last night it was. So, you know, maybe that's, if they just continue to do that, you know, and continue to really just put a lot of effort, you know, in their stories and getting their guys over and stuff, I think it's going to, they're going to do well with the audience. So last night was a pretty good indicator of that, and we'll be talking a lot about Fyter Fest here in just a little bit. But we'll discuss a few other things as well first. Like I said, I want to talk to the chat real quick and see what you guys have to say about this Goldberg news. And it's... none of us, there's not going to be too many people that are going to be like, sweet, Goldberg's coming back. I think we pretty much all agree that sucks. But earlier, I was trying to do my best to look at the silver lining, that at least if they're going to bring Goldberg in, I don't agree that he's just going to get a title match, you know, without having to earn it. But at least if they're bringing him in, they're putting him with their champions like McIntyre earlier in the year and with Lashley, and hopefully they will have him lose. If he wins, then it's a whole nother story, and that's going to suck very bad. But anyway, good to see Bruce in here, and Ben and Mark Simpson. Tomas David is in the house. Tim Peralta, who truly believes that Goldberg be returning to SummerSlam scenario. Who truly believes it? It's pretty easy to believe. He's contractually obligated to do 2 matches. He's only done 1. You're going to see him again. SummerSlam seems like a likely place. It's not really that far-fetched. And even if it doesn't turn out to be true, another show will be true. So you're going to see him, Tim, whether you want to or not. George Morris, thanks for the $5. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? Very sad about Mr. Wonderful. Half of the WrestleMania 1 main event is gone. More than that, my neighbors are outside cussing and screaming. Well, go beat your neighbors with a whip, or go out there and whip them or punch them or something. Do something violent. You know how you are. George Morris, you'll take care of business. Yeah, the actual WrestleMania 1 match, the tag team match, half is gone. But really, when you look at the entire match, I think like 3/4 of the match is dead, because you got to add Pat Patterson, you got to add Jimmy Snuka, Muhammad Ali, Billy Martin, all those guys involved kind of on the outside. And then the combatants, the only ones still alive are Hogan, T, and Cowboy Bob. But everybody else, the surrounding that main event is it's passed away. And we'll talk about Orndorff here in a bit. We kind of got some bad news on his health a few weeks back. So this didn't come as a total shock, but it also immediately made me think of Terry Funk and some of the things he's going through. And I hope, I hope Terry can hang on for a bit longer. Naveed is here as well. So is Charlie. Deshaun Robinson's here. What's up, dude? Good to see you. Sonic Players, Kayvon, Lewis. AEW killed it last night. Good on them. Good on them. Exactly. That's all you can really do. The crowd helped. The crowd was a big part of that last night. They were super into it, and that was nice to see. Ben Espinoza. Good to see you, man. Jose is here. Dre L. Zane G. I know, Zane, the YouTube notifications suck. Something is up with my views right now. We go in dips and valleys, and they'll climb again, probably especially when we get into Money in the Bank and SummerSlam time. But I have not been happy with my performance the past couple weeks. But shit happens. We'll move on. Michael Cuomo, good to see you. Joey's Adventures, thanks for the $5 from you as well. Goldberg hates putting over heels, so I'm worried for Bobby here. It's not going to be up to Goldberg, dude. There's rumor last minute he refused to go on if Bray beat him. I don't know if I necessarily believe that rumor. If Bray beat him, Goldberg, I don't like him. Goldberg, I think, almost like thinks too much of himself sometimes, but at the same time, I just have trouble totally accepting that and WWE actually putting themselves in a position to where a talent could do that to them. Because they're so big now, back in like 1998, if Stone Cold would have, refused to go out there, that could have been catastrophic, But nowadays, I would just think that WWE's got protection there. And, when it comes to Goldberg, then you're talking breach of contract stuff, and he's not going to get his money, So I just don't know. And I don't know, when it comes to Goldberg, who's only pops in and out, he doesn't have that John Cena level of stroke. I wouldn't think. I'm sure he has a say in what he does. I'm sure he's not going to put pen to paper and agree to anything unless he's okay from a creative standpoint what that's going to be. But a lot of times you don't know what that's going to be, down the road. So unless he has something in there that he is, creative, whatever. If he's, I would think that when that match is signed, you already know what's going to happen. I mean, if they say, hey, come, we need you to face Bray Wyatt, Goldberg's going to be like, am I winning or am I losing? What? But I don't know. I just don't think that Bobby Lashley's title run, the run that they spent some good amount of time investing in and building up Bobby Lashley, and they did it well. Like, he was very protected for a number of months there prior to winning the title. I don't know if you sacrifice all of that just because what Goldberg does or doesn't want to do, you know what I mean? Then you just wouldn't do the match. If Goldberg's like, yeah, I'll come in and face Lashley, but I refuse to lose, then they're probably like, okay, you're not going to face Lashley then. I'm not agreeing with that one. We'll see, though. I mean, what they did to The Fiend, anything could happen. So, and back then, if you remember, before that match in Saudi Arabia, I was like, no way the Fiend Goldberg beats The Fiend. That would make no sense. And what happened? So I apply the same logic here. It makes no sense for Goldberg to come in and beat Bobby Lashley, but they've done it before. But even with that, even with the Saudi Arabia match against The Fiend, I'm still saying no on Lashley. Just no fucking way. Having a match with Goldberg is a career ender. It can be. And, I mean, how is he going to try to jackknife Lashley? I just hope that doesn't get ugly. Jose, I think I got you. You're back from the doctor's appointment, and you're wired up. Heart monitor in a fanny pack. Right on. I've had experience with that. With somebody that I know went through the same exact thing. Thanks, Barry, with a blue shirt. Are you hinting that I'm a fan of SmackDown? Yeah, well, I'm a fan of SmackDown more than Raw. This isn't really like SmackDown colors, though. This is more like summertime or Carolina blue color, actually, even though it says California on my shirt. Yeah, I need a little darker, I think, for SmackDown, but no, maybe not. You'd rather see Kofi get the title and hold it until SummerSlam? I would love to see Kofi get the title back based on everything they've been doing on TV, though. He's got a victory over Lashley. Xavier picked one up last week. Lashley's going into SummerSlam as champion. No way avoiding it. Are you serious, Goldberg? Who asked for that? Nobody. Just like everything WWE does, nobody asks for what they do. They just do it, and they're going to give it to us, and they're going to cram Goldberg up our ass. But we knew that. We knew that at Royal Rumble. We talked about it at the Royal Rumble. I said, this ain't the last time. I'm glad that we escaped this match with Drew McIntyre, and we didn't have to worry about Goldberg. Didn't he wrestle that match in like shorts or something? We didn't have to worry about him winning the title. But we knew we were going to get him again. We knew he'd turn back up. So WWE waited for the audience to be back, and they're bringing him back, I guess. Yeah, we will see. Yeah, and now that we've had, and Bruce, you bring, I don't know if Bruce brings up Big E. If you're having Lashley do this stuff with the New Day right now, having all these issues with Kofi and Xavier, having Big E win the briefcase would make things very interesting, especially if, I mean, I don't know if you want to do everything in one night, but you talk about a pop. Holy shit. Because that's one thing we should talk about with Big E. Like, I want to see him get an opportunity, but there's also something that makes me a tiny bit apprehensive. We love Big E on this channel. We've been clamoring for him and calling for him to be champion for a long time. But, you know, I feel like even if he was, I just don't know how well WWE would use him in that top role. So maybe like a little test first before you go full on with him. You know, maybe if you can, you test something out here. If it goes well, you push and build Big E for WrestleMania. And you could accomplish a lot by doing this. You'd burn off a briefcase in one night, but at the same time, you'd create quite the moment. And WWE is more about moments than they are, you know, about actual storytelling. So if you have Lashley, we've already seen what he's done to Kofi and Xavier. He was pissed on Monday night, tore up the MVP lounge. We don't even know if he's still with MVP at this point. So if he goes into that match now with Kofi pissed off, I was in the audience when Brock beat Kofi for the title in 5 seconds. You know, I think Lashley and Kofi are going to have a little bit longer of a match than that. I hope they do because I want to see Kofi give him a good run. But based on how mad Lashley is, story-wise, you think he's got to hurt Kofi here. He's either got to beat him really quickly or hurt him. So if he doesn't beat him quickly, Brock Lesnar style, but he eventually does get the win, Xavier Woods is all involved. You know, maybe MVP shows up and helps Lashley take out Xavier Woods, and then Bobby Lashley just decides to go ape shit on both of them and fuck them both up. Well, let's say earlier on in the night, they had the men's Money in the Bank, and Big E won the briefcase, maybe the match before. And he comes out, makes the save on his New Day buddies, cashes in right there on Bobby Lashley, beats Bobby Lashley on Sunday for the title, and closes out Money in the Bank as WWE champion. Problem is, you'd have to make this match the main event, and I think that might make things a little bit obvious. Because otherwise, Lashley and Kofi probably shouldn't be the main event unless you do a cash-in. So if it goes to the main event and you got Big E holding the case, I feel like everybody would see that coming. But it might be cool for Big E to come out, cash in on Lashley, win the title at Money in the Bank, but then have a rematch with Lashley at SummerSlam and drop the belt back to him. And then the fans will be like, oh, man, WWE, you gave us Big E for a month and then you took the title off of him, you motherfuckers. But then you just build Big E back to that redemption, goes into the Royal Rumble, wins the Royal Rumble, goes on to WrestleMania, wins the title. Now, none of this is going to happen now because I think, it's looking like Goldberg is going to come in and he's going to be the one to work with Lashley. But with Lashley doing everything with New Day, Big E being inserted into that somehow could be possible. And right now, we're going to do our predictions on Saturday, but he's the one that's kind of at the top of my list in terms of who I want to see win the briefcase. I think he would be fun and be a good way just to get him there and just watch the fans react to him. I think it'll be fun, but we'll see. I think it's unlikely that exact scenario is going to play out, but something similar with Big E could definitely play out. We'll see. What's up, David Brown? Hey, Gerg. No regrets. Was Mr. Wonderful the last living member of the Heenan family? I believe so, although the Heenan families was large. I mean, technically, Tully and Arn were members of the Heenan family, technically. But that mid-'80s Heenan family, we're talking Orndorff, Stud, Bundy, Andre, Perfect, Rude. Even Perfect and Rude were kind of late. Perfect and Rude were there at the same time. I think Tully and Arn were there. Perfect, Rude, and Mr. Wonderful. Yeah, he's you can maybe find another member out there like a Tully or an Arn that technically would count. But yeah, he's it. Oh, man. Barbarian. It's another good one. Bruce. Nice. Happy birthday to Mama Lopez. Happy to hear that, man. Wish her happy birthday for us. Goldberg is going to beat Bobby Lashley. I don't think he will. Unless he's signed on for more matches. Would be crazy. But then again, like I said that about The Fiend. I said that about, you can see Goldberg winning. Man, why would he come in, lose to Drew, but then not lose to, I don't know. I guess I can't sit here and act so confident. I mean, it's, they if anybody could do it and ruin fans coming back, think about that. Only WWE would be capable of ruining fans coming back. I mean, I'm going to be at SummerSlam. The last thing I want to see is that fucker winning the title. That would just be crazy. Who would have thought in 2021 I'd be in attendance to watch Goldberg win a championship? That would just be bizarre. But no, I'm really hoping no. Michael Cuomo, thanks for the $5. Lashley will likely drop the belt at Survivor Series. Latest is December. No heel can go past 300 days as WWE champion. Yeah, I'm curious when Lashley's run exactly will end, because if it's not going to be Lesnar coming back and that match is not immediately on the horizon, then all he really has is what he's got there on Raw, another battle with Drew down the line or Goldberg coming in. Whenever the draft happens, sounds like that might have been pushed to October now. We're not really sure when the draft is going to go down, but if it does take place right after SummerSlam, then you can move some stuff around and Lashley could have someone to work with there from SmackDown or something. I don't know. Just don't know. But yeah, it kind of feels like after Kofi, what would Lashley really do? So, I mean, when you think about the Goldberg story, I guess it kind of does make a little bit of sense. Because we've been all thinking Lesnar, well, it looks like Lesnar and his ponytail are not coming into WWE, at least right now. Probably be later this year or next for him. So, you know, if you have a big SummerSlam show, I'm trying to think in WWE's mentality, this is the way they think. They don't think that anybody on Raw or anything like that could be a good opponent for Lashley, so they have to go elsewhere, which is ridiculous, but that's WWE's mindset. I don't know. That's a good question, Sam. Who gets the biggest AEW theme pop, Judas, Wild Thing, or Jungle Boy? Based on last night, I don't know, Moxley. Well, Moxley opened the show, though, coming out to Wild Thing like that. That crowd was not fucking around. I can't wait to talk about Dynamite here in just a minute. We'll be getting into that. All right. Do we count the Red Rooster? Haku, thank you. Brainbusters Haku Barbarian. I don't know if we should count the Rooster. I guess we should, because he was a member of the Heenan family. And yeah, I agree. It's definitely looking like Seth is going to cost Edge as well. And Seth Rollins would be another okay briefcase winner. I wouldn't mind him winning it again. It worked out pretty well the first time. So anyway, before we get into a little bit of NXT and AEW, I just want to pay really quick tribute to Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, who we were just talking about, who did pass away this week. We got some word on his health a couple of weeks ago. Very kind of uncomfortable, kind of disturbing video of him looking weathered, just so to speak, and very long hair. Apparently was suffering from dementia and had a lot of just had a lot of problems. He was going down quickly. And that tends to be the case with a lot of these old-time wrestlers. We've seen it, with Vern Gagne and now Paul Orndorff. There's rumors of Terry Funk, possibly suffering from some similar, health issues. And a lot of the stuff is mental because of the style they worked and all of that. So it takes a toll on them. It seems like once they hit a certain age, 70s or whatever it is, and Paul Orndorff was a huge staple of the 80s, especially for me. I have so many fond memories of him because when he came into WWE, I'd say probably around 83, he turned heads right off the bat. He was real, and he was a bad son of a bitch, fellow Florida boy with Hulk Hogan. They kind of had a natural rivalry there because I think they even attended rival high schools or something like that. And Orndorff worked all over the place. He worked the Carolinas, he worked in Mid-South, and then eventually coming to WWF in the mid or early 80s. And then he was he jumped around from heel or babyface, and his run in WWF I remember so well. I remember all of it because I watched all of it. And he came in as a heel, and he started I think he had kind of Roddy Piper as his manager because when Piper first came in from the NWA, he was suffering an injury from the dog collar match he had at Starrcade. So he couldn't wrestle right away. And I think he was kind of in a managerial role, and he kind of had formed an alliance with Paul Orndorff. They turned out to be the opponents at the first WrestleMania for Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. And, of course, they lost that match, and Orndorff took a shot on the back of the neck from Cowboy Bob inadvertently that cost him the match right after that. Orndorff was abandoned by his heel teammates, and he turned babyface and formed an alliance with Hogan. And the two were like bros. And they were, they're wrestling in tag team matches and shit for about a year. Their alliance lasted for a little over a year. And I'll never forget being a little 10-year-old kid, sitting in, we had a little tiny TV in our kitchen. And I think the other TVs were being used for something or whatever. My sisters were watching TV or something. So I remember sitting in a chair on the kitchen, watching Superstars, or it might have been Challenge, I forgot what it was, on the little 13-inch little Zenith, little box-ass TV, and it's going to be a tag team match with Hogan and Paul Orndorff taking on Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy. And there's kind of dissension between the two. They're backstage kind of not getting along. And I remember trying to spot a work at 10 years old. It's not as easy as it is when you're 44. So you can kind of watch, and they're kind of teasing it. They go out to the ring, and before things really get started, Orndorff just levels Hulk with a vicious clothesline, picks him up, and pile drives him. And it was a lot like, it's like the Lawler and Andy Kaufman pile driver. It was a pile driver that the world felt. And little Greg, back when I had hair, little Greg really thought that Paul Orndorff was a legitimate and real threat to Hulk Hogan's title. They made it seem that way. Orndorff was scary. There was just something about him that was just really scary. He wasn't bigger than Hogan or anything, but he had that body. He was very tough. And like I said, he came off as somebody that could probably just legit beat the shit out of anybody he came into contact with. So the feud with Hogan, I think it was the best house show business any feud has ever done in terms of live event ticket sales and houses drawn and shit like that. They drew 60 or 70,000 in Toronto for an outdoor show that's on a VHS tape that I actually have. They had cage matches throughout their feud. It was a memorable and brutal feud, and it was probably Hogan's best. Of his entire run, I think he had some good matches with Savage, but his feud with Orndorff, I guess it's just because the way I perceived it at the time, being a kid, watching this unfold as it was happening. For me, I remember, my little Hulkamaniac heart was a little worried. Little did I know I'd have a lot more to worry about a year later when the big nasty giant would get his hands on Hogan. But during '86, that was a really big deal, and Orndorff was a great heel. And then they turned him again. And at this what was funny about Orndorff is they didn't do this frequent heel and babyface turns back then in the 80s as they do now. Now somebody can be a heel, face, and a heel all in the span of 1 year. But Orndorff was different, because he was really changing his heart a lot. He came in as a heel, then he turned babyface, then he turned on Hogan and worked for him all through '86, and then he started having the dissension with Bobby Heenan because Bobby Heenan brought in Rick Rude, and now you got two body guys kind of in the Heenan family, and they were a natural clash, and Paul Orndorff wound up turning babyface again. So he went from heel to baby within, I guess, 2 years, maybe 2.5. And it was really fast, and it was a lot of things happening at once. And even a year later at Survivor Series in '87, Hogan and Orndorff would be on the same Survivor Series team, given their history, which was pretty crazy. Orndorff, I think it was late '80s, ended up getting kind of jobbed out. And I don't know where he turned up prior to WCW. I don't know where he went, but I think he was semi-retired for a little while. He owned a bowling alley, which my friend Daniel, we've bowled at before. I used to be kind of like an amateur bowler and used to travel around and do tournaments and stuff. And I know we bowled at Paul Orndorff's bowling alley, and I knew that his family had owned it, but I know he was focusing on that and running his bowling alley. And then he got signed by WCW and was there for a few years. It was interesting, too. He was there with Hogan. I remember watching WCW Saturday Night one time when Hogan had just come in and Savage was there with him now. And I think it was Hogan and Savage versus Pretty Wonderful. And it was at, MGM when that ring that spun, in front of the 55 people that they had in attendance that weren't even wrestling fans. And I remember at the time just watching, I'm like, God, this is hard to watch. Hogan and Orndorff, with all of their history, back in the same ring, and it's literally they are just walking through the matches and the punches. It was the worst thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, man, they should be capitalizing or talking about the history. Maybe Heenan might have mentioned something on commentary, but even he wasn't paying much attention to it. The fact that Orndorff and Hogan were kind of like in the ring again, based on the gnarly feud they had a decade prior, was pretty crazy that it just felt so meaningless and so bad. And Orndorff had a little bit of a run. He won a couple of titles in WCW, and then he had that nerve issue or the neck problem that led to, I think it was his left arm that just had been completely atrophied, and it was not even close to the size of the right arm. And he came back and did a return match, I think, on Nitro, maybe like 98 or 99, and wrestled, with that weird arm and everything, and actually got back in the ring. But Paul Orndorff was a stud, a real stud. A lot of people remember him in WCW for the backstage fight he had with Vader that most people who were there said that Orndorff got the better of, beat the absolute shit out of Vader, did it wearing flip-flops. And it was a pretty brutal fight. I still don't think any fight will match the level of brutality that Danny Spivey and Adrian Adonis had, but which I think breaks all records for brutality, maybe even more than the Arn-Sid Scissor fight. Well, maybe not that far, but close. It was pretty bad. But apparently Vader got worked over pretty good by Mr. Wonderful back in the WCW days. But a true stud, a true legend, somebody that I have a lot of memories of, and a true Hall of Famer. So rest in peace, Paul Orndorff. Condolences out to his family, his friends, and rest wonderfully, sir. You were awesome. Before we move on, like I said, to NXT and AEW, just want to mention one more thing about Monday night's show since I wasn't here. We did see Lashley go nuts at the end of the show because he took a loss to Xavier Woods, and then MVP tried to cheer him up with women. One of those Lashley women was actually pulled a Rick Rude. She was on Raw, and she was also on AEW Dark, which airs right before Raw. So she was actually on both shows on Monday, the blonde one. I thought that was pretty cool. But the angle that they did at the end, I couldn't tell because I didn't watch any of the show. I only watched basically the YouTube clip. I can't tell if Lashley is dumping MVP or if Lashley is just like, we're going to be serious now, enough of this stuff. So I kind of think maybe Lashley will go into the match with Kofi on his own. And then maybe if Xavier, kind of gets involved or something, that might bring out MVP to help even the odds a little bit. And then at the end of the match, when Lashley wins, him and MVP are back on the same page, because I thought it was a huge mistake to break up the Hurt Business. I don't think you need to take away MVP from this equation because he works really well. He's an excellent talker, and he really tells the story well. And I mean, Lashley did good too. The way he got on the mic, I know he said shit and it was very edgy and everything, but he got on the mic and he seemed like he really, really meant business. And I liked what I saw from him on Monday on the mic, but I still think MVP's better. So I hope WWE isn't breaking up this duo either, because I think they're pretty fucking good. Wanted to mention a little bit about Tuesday's NXT. Not going to mention a lot because I want to get into last night's Fyter Fest. But it looks like we've got a new challenger for Raquel Gonzalez set, which is going to be Xia Li. They had a match between Dakota Kai and Ember Moon. Dakota beats Ember clean, but then after the match, Xia Li comes out because Raquel is there and makes a beeline right for the ring. And I think it was really kind of telling the way she didn't acknowledge Dakota Kai's presence at all, as if Dakota Kai was invisible. Went right to Raquel Gonzalez, challenged her, said she wants another crack at the title, and you could kind of see that Dakota was a little bit taken aback by that. So I think they're really kind of doing the slow burn here with Dakota and Ember. I feel like they might even be baby faces a little bit in this situation with Xia Li. And I guess when, if Raquel beat Xia, I like Xia Li a lot, but I'm not sure if she'll be the one to beat Raquel. I kind of think it's kind of quick for her, or a little bit early, maybe build her to that. I want to see Xia Li as champion, actually. I just don't know if it's going to happen right here against Raquel. I think the match will eventually be Raquel and Dakota once they get to that, but they're kind of taking their time. But all that was pretty good. I loved the Cameron Grimes, LA Knight, Butler stuff. Of course, Cameron Grimes lost at the big match. They had the ladder match or whatever, so he has to be, or the ladder match was for the title. And then they did another match. He became his butler, right? Anyway, he lost that, so now he's his butler. Grimes shows up to LA Knight's house, and it was funny because LA Knight thinks he looks disgusting, so he wants to trim him up and give him a makeover. They cut his hair in the backyard, and Grimes ends up loving it. He actually is really into it. He's like, oh, man, I look pretty damn good. And he's enjoying the gloves, and LA Knight's kind of pissed. He's like, no, you're supposed to hate this. You're supposed to be mad, and Grimes is kind of into it. LA Knight, I think, goes somewhere and leaves or whatever. He comes strutting back, hey, man, hey, brother. And Grimes just sitting at his pool with his feet back, and he's got wearing he's basically naked out there. And there's like a little kid in the yard like mowing the grass. Like, what's that kid doing out there? He goes, well, I'm not only am I a butler, I'm still a millionaire. So I paid him, I delegated. I'm paying him to cut the grass or whatever. He's, no, you're not doing that. And then he kicks the kid out of there or whatever. So, and the kid kicks LA Knight right in his shin, which was pretty funny. So the fact that Grimes is such a goofy motherfucker that he's actually into this whole thing, cracked me up. I like that a lot. We had Duke Hudson kind of debuting. This is the NXT Breakout Tournament first round. Now, he's formerly Brendan Vink, and he was teaming with who? Shane Thorne. He had a couple of matches on Raw, but he seemed really impressive here, and he was getting a lot of positive remarks and responses from a lot of wrestlers and a lot of people in the business that night during his match, and I think he turned a lot of heads. So we'll see what Duke Hudson winds up doing, but he's a big corn-fed white boy, or maybe he's Vegemite-fed because I think he's from Australia. But he's a big boy, and I guess I just didn't notice that the couple of times I had seen him on Raw the past year or whatever it was. Another good outing and victory for Saray. She was back in the ring this week, beating Gigi Dolan, nearly kicking her head off with one really sick dropkick spot that nearly decapitated poor Gigi, but Saray got the win there. And during that match, Mandy Rose shows up on the stage and starts kind of scouting the match a little bit, scouting the talent, and did a promo backstage basically saying that she's back in NXT. And this took a lot of people by surprise because just on Raw, even though Raw was a tape show, she's in the middle of an angle right now with the tag team champions, with her tag team partner. You thought that maybe this was going to finally lead to WWE giving a little bit of gold to Dana Brooke. And since they've made the two of them a tag team for some reason, and now right in the middle of everything, they decide to split them up and send Mandy Rose to NXT. Why are they doing that? Apparently this was a trade. I don't know if there's or something they're going to make this known in storyline or whatever, but Mandy Rose, I guess, has been officially traded to NXT for Aaliyah, who's going to be heading to Raw. Now, Aaliyah's been in NXT for a while. We've heard that Vince McMahon and other WWE officials were at the Performance Center scouting talent because for some reason their TVs don't work and they can't just watch fucking NXT to scout talent. They went down there, looked at a bunch of people, liked what they saw from Aaliyah, and apparently are bringing her to Raw. So sending Mandy Rose to NXT is a bit of a head-scratcher, but I think can be good if it's something more significant for Mandy Rose to do. Who knows? It seems that weird that she's going back there right as we're going back on the road. So it makes me wonder if maybe she requested to go back to NXT. Is she dating anybody? Maybe she's dating somebody in NXT, and she's like, I'd rather just stay here and be with them so I don't have to travel on the road, or I don't know. Who knows what the reasoning is? It feels so random that I can't see WWE like coming up with this on their own. Of all the women in the company, they're just going to specifically target her and say, we should put her back in NXT. It makes me think that she played a role in this. Maybe she asked to go back. I have no idea. I haven't seen if Fightful or anybody else have put up any stories on this as to why this trade happened, but Mandy Rose back in NXT, I got to be honest, I'm not against it. I'm not against anybody going back to NXT. If I'm in WWE, that's where I want to work. So at least there, she knows that whatever they do for her creatively will be most of the time followed through with, unless it just really, really sucks and they have no choice but to pull it. There's a couple things that they've started and stopped. I can never really follow what the hell's going on with the Robert Stone brand. That shit seems like it's all over the place creatively in NXT. But for the most part, what they do, they tend to follow through with a hell of a lot better than they do on the main roster. So for Mandy, this is good. Just curious as to why. And if it was just Aaliyah, and okay, fine, we're going to send Aaliyah to Raw. That means it's not like you have to fill that void. You could have just sent Aaliyah to Raw without replacing her with anybody. So there's got to be more to that than meets the eye, one would assume, with Mandy Rose there going back to NXT, but we'll see what she does there. Dexter Lumis got carried away by Indy Hartwell after a loss to Santos Escobar. That was cute. And the only other thing I want to mention is, of course, the main event. Karrion Kross defending the NXT title against Johnny Wrestling. I was looking forward to this one because with Kross, the way he's been booked and stuff, I'm like, well, he's been beating everybody. He's not going to beat Gargano, or he's not going to lose to Gargano. But with the main event tapings that he's done, and with WWE seemingly possibly ready to put him on the main roster, he felt like maybe you could see a title change there, especially when you put Samoa Joe in there as an official, that can hold his own and can maybe just choke out Kross and let Gargano pin him. I kind of thought it was going to be something like that, but they went in a different direction instead. Kross beat Gargano, which he should if that's a straight-up match. I kind of agree with that outcome there, only because Kross has beaten everybody else, Finn Balor a couple times and all that. So I feel like he would have to be. I'm not against Gargano being NXT champion, just maybe against him defeating Karrion Kross here, clean or anything. But with some help from Samoa Joe, I thought it was possible. So when Kross beat Gargano, and you could tell like they were setting this whole fucking show up around Joe and Kross, the interactions they had backstage, the tension during the match, the tension during the instructions, and Kross just refusing to acknowledge or show any respect whatsoever to Joe. They were building it. They were building it. They were building it. You knew it was going to happen. And then after the match, when Kross wins, he goes up behind Samoa Joe and chokes him out. Chokes out what seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm the most blind motherfucker in the world, seems to be a cleared Samoa Joe. Why would they do this if Samoa Joe's not getting in the ring? You know what I mean? So this feels like what they're doing here is they're trying to set up something big for the next takeover, Karrion Kross's next big opponent. And if you need to get him on the main roster, you can do that a couple of ways. You could do what you did with Asuka and just send him over there undefeated. But, Asuka got hurt, so she forfeited the title. With Karrion Kross, I don't think you're going to do a deal where you're going to strip him of the title, because if you were, then you wouldn't even have Samoa Joe involved here. You could just have Karrion Kross go batshit, just go apeshit, just attack William Regal, go backstage, choke out Triple H, choke out Shawn. Come here, you little scrawny fucker. Just choke out the boy toy. That'll be enough to get you stripped or suspended. It's all you need to do. So the fact that you've specifically gone out of your way to re-sign Joe, bring him in, put him in this enforcer role, because if Joe is permanently not going to be able to wrestle, he's never going to be cleared, he'd probably just be Regal's replacement. The fact that he's enforcer, it's temporary, this has a shelf life, this entire situation from the minute dun, 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 his music hit when he returned, they were setting up Karrion Kross and Samoa Joe. It is 1,000,000% clear that that's where they're going. And I think that's awesome because that means it's going to put Samoa Joe back in the ring. And if you need to get the belt away from Kross, because forfeiting it or stripping him and then doing a tournament for it, you only need to do that when you have to, kind of thing, or if it's a secondary title, like Keith Lee forfeiting the North American title. Otherwise, if nobody's injured, I think the belt needs to change hands. And if you don't, and all your top guys in NXT right now, your Adam Coles, your Johnny Garganos, your Finn Balor's, they're a lot smaller than Karrion Kross. So if you have plans for Karrion Kross to go to the main roster as somebody big and bad, you should have him lose to somebody big and bad. You know what I mean? So I think Joe, of all the people, unless you brought in a Walter or something, Joe is the only one with that real credibility. That veteran that's been in the ring with the biggest and best and toughest names. He's been in there with the Angles. He's been in there with the Brocks. He's been in there with the Romans, the Cenas. He's been in there with everybody. So what better guy, if you need to get the belt off of Kross. Maybe Kross isn't going to the main roster. Maybe they took a look at him on main event and they saw what all of us saw. There is no magic there. The magic is only in NXT. So maybe they're like, let's keep him there. If that's the case, he'll face Samoa Joe and beat Samoa Joe. But if he's going to the main roster, you got to take the belt off of him. So they're doing all of that here to set up Samoa Joe and Karrion Kross. It's what they're doing. So I think that's awesome because that's going to put Samoa Joe back in the ring. Because if they're not doing this, you're not going to run this angle and you're not going to do this chokeout spot and then just not do the match. That's not going to happen. If that was the case, then Joe wouldn't even be here. He wouldn't even be present. Just make Triple H a referee. Joe chokes him out. Triple H comes out next week. Or I'm sorry, Cross chokes out Triple H. Triple H comes out next week. You don't do that. I'm fucking Triple H. You don't put your hands on me. I'm stripping you right now of the title. You're fired. And then Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville can pick him up and put him on the main roster. But to have Joe specifically be the one to be here, and to be brought back, why would they re-sign Joe, bring him back into NXT just to get choked out by Karrion Kross and then Karrion Kross leaves? It's not what's happening. So I'm excited for that development because that's going to be an interesting match. Assuming that happens, it's going to be Kross and Joe, because if it's not, then what the hell else do you do for him? What do you do with Kross, aside from, bringing somebody back in? So I guess it could go either way. It feels like they're going to be moving Kross up and they're setting the stages for him to be moved to that main roster. But if not, he might just stay in NXT and hold the title for the rest of the year. I mean, for Kross's sake, I kind of hope that's the case. I kind of think NXT is the better place for him, but I just got this feeling, and I don't know where it comes from. I just got this feeling that Triple H wants him out of there. I think Triple H wants him on the main roster so he can have his NXT back kind of thing. But I think Kross is awesome. I like his presentation, his entrance, the pairing with Scarlett. He's a great looking NXT champion, and a guy that the longer he hangs there and the longer he works there, the better he'll be when he does get to the main roster. So I'm in no rush, for him to move up, because of all the fans that like to pick apart his in-ring work. That will only get better, the more matches he has with Garganos and Samoa Joes and Adam Coles and stuff. So that stuff will improve the longer he's there. Where it might not so much if he goes if he goes up to the main roster. I don't know. But I was pretty excited with those developments. That's pretty awesome. Now we got a couple of scheduling problems for NXT, July 27th and August 3rd. Both episodes of NXT will air on Sci-Fi due to the Olympics, so keep that in mind for later on this month. And those are going to be overlapping with my vacation. I leave on the 26th and I come back on the 2nd. So you're going to have a week gap there where you're not going to get anything from me except for a pre-taped review that I'm going to release. I'll give you guys the details on that as we go through. So that pretty much wraps it up for NXT. Just wanted to talk about that. I thought it was a really good show. Not as good as AEW, but the main event really held up, and I loved the story that they told throughout the night with Joe and Kross. That gives me hope that we're going to have a big takeover match between those two. So we will see. After that was it. That's right. I'm not talking about anything else on NXT. We're going to talk about AEW now. Last night's Dynamite Fyter Fest Night 1 drew a 1.025 million viewer rating. That's pretty damn good. Drawing over 1 million like that, they stacked the card pretty good here, especially with the main event. That coffin match was ridiculous. And from top to bottom here, the matches were good, the promos were good, and the crowd was super hot, and the crowd deserves a shit ton of credit for helping the show be as good as it was. It opened up with, talk about awesome, opened up with an IWGP US title match, Jon Moxley defending against Carl Anderson. Big name in Japan, founding member of the Bullet Club. And this was a pretty cool match to have, I thought, to open up. Of course, Mox and Kingston hit the ring to Wild Thing. The crowd is losing their shit. And unfortunately, I wasn't home to watch any of this live. I had to watch it last night. And I'm like, man, fucking wrestling, man. Fucking wrestling. It was so awesome to see all of that. So they end up having a pretty damn good match with each other, too. The crowd was popping for all of it. Moxley looked great, wound up winning with the Paradigm Shift, and retains the U.S. title. Now, later on, Lance Archer would do a promo with Jake the Snake Roberts, where he challenged Jon Moxley next week to a U.S. title match. Moxley, I think, beat Archer for the U.S. title, correct? And since Fyter Fest Night 2 is in Texas, he's proposing a Texas death match for next week for the U.S. title against Jon Moxley, and I believe Moxley would later on accept. So I think that match is set for next week. That's going to be good. 2 back-to-back U.S. title defenses for Jon Moxley in America in an AEW ring. Very cool. Interesting little promo with Andrade and Abrahantes backstage, where Andrade talks about the death triangle and says that he's got a message for them. He's looking for them, so he wants to find them. So that gets me all hot and bothered. Not maybe hot and bothered, but aroused, I suppose, so to speak, because now you've got a potential of Andrade versus Phoenix, Andrade versus Penta, or I'm sorry, Andrade versus Pac, I should say, is what I'm looking for. And that match of its own in itself is going to be really, part of me wonders if it's going to be like, what do you call a triangle, a quadrant or whatever? Like it might be a foursome. I'm not sure if he's looking to join Death Triangle or if he's looking to feud with anybody there. But either way, it's going to result in either great matches or a great alliance. Not really sure what the direction is, but that's interesting. And, man, I'm so happy Andrade is there. So much better stuff for him to do there, and some great damn opponents lined up for him once they start making a direction for him storyline-wise, which it looks like they're doing now. As we predicted, the big FTW title match took place with Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. You can kind of see this one coming from a mile away. You knew Brian Cage is going to be the one to be outed out of Team Taz and probably the one to turn babyface, although you wouldn't know it from the crowd. I believe Ricky Starks was in his hometown last night, so the crowd was very, very pro Starks, and you could tell the way Taz was on commentary there. The fix was in right from the start. You had Will Hobbs wound up helping out Ricky Starks, hitting Brian Cage with the FTW title. Starks gets the win. It was all kind of a ruse, and Taz was very, very happy with the outcome there. Hook was out there. Hobbs was out there. And they all basically just fucked over Brian Cage. So Cage will probably just go babyface now, I guess, and we'll see what he does next. But the FTW title has officially changed hands, even though it's not an official or recognized title. And Ricky Starks is your new champion, and that was his first match back, I think, since his injury. So really happy to see him back in the ring and got a big win in front of his hometown. And that, for him, probably had to feel pretty damn good, especially since we've been dealing largely with no fans for the past 18 months. We had a continuation of last week's great Malachi Black debut when he came out and kicked Arn Anderson in the face, and then he hit the Black Mass on Cody as well. Cody comes storming out to the announce table, and he gets on the headset, basically cuts a promo at the announce table on Black or Tommy Yen, and he goes, "Here, what we don't do here is we don't kick 62-year-old men in the face," and all of that, and he's getting more upset, and he's getting more angry as he's talking, and finally he's like, "I can't do this," and he takes the headset off, demands a microphone, goes in the ring, and gets on the mic and starts calling out Malachi Black, "Come out here, I want to kick your ass," or whatever he says. Lights wind up dimming. You see Black on the screen, doing very much what he was doing on SmackDown, kind of very similar kind of ordeal. And props to him for kind of keeping a little bit of that character intact, keeping the eye injury from when he had his eye gouged out last year with all that stuff they were doing by Buddy Murphy and everything. So the fact that he takes the time to care this much about stuff, I think it really, really helps him, and I think the fans appreciate that too. And had a little bit of a story time. It was kind of like half what Aleister Black would do on SmackDown and half what Drew McIntyre does on Raw. Just tells some crazy-ass story. This one was about a man who had to kill his horse, his beloved horse, and he wanted to let him go out with dignity and put a bag over his head and shot him or whatever. Basically a metaphor for what he's going to do to Cody. Cody demands that he comes out, and AEW gave the fans what they wanted. They wanted to see Black back in the ring for 2 weeks in a row. The lights go out. They come back up. He's in the ring with Cody. Malachi is all in black. Cody is all in white. They immediately start brawling. Fans go nuts. Officials empty out of the locker room. Big pull apart. And these guys need to be torn apart to get them off of each other, which was really cool. So I don't know, if this is going to be stretched all the way until All Out, which is not until September, or if you're going to have to do this match a little bit earlier than that at either Fyter Fest or Fight for the Fallen. So we'll see where these two guys finally collide, but you gotta know that when they finally do, it's gonna be Malachi Black getting the win here. It has to be. And Cody got a pretty good response last night. Cody makes us roll our eyes sometimes, even though we love Cody. We know how Cody can be. He's a little bit self-indulgent from time to time. But last night, he looked good. I liked what he was saying. I liked his intensity. I believed it. And the fans were as well. They were giving him a good reaction. And the brawl, once they came to blows and finally started, slugging it out, the fans just fucking loved it. So that's going to be a fun match, Cody and Black, when it does finally happen. And I think Cody's going to put him over. I think that's the only thing you can do in that situation. I was happy to see this with Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. We were talking about last week the way the seeds were finally planted there for Hangman and Omega, but the problem is we still have a long way until All Out with a lot of big shows on the horizon with another night of Fyter Fest and 2 Road Ragers. Does Road Rager, or not Road Ragers, but a Fight for the Fallen. I think Fight for the Fallen might have 2 nights. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of shows coming up. So basically, you got to kill some time and you got to get to September 5th at All Out between these 2 guys. So Hangman cuts a promo. He officially lays down the challenge to Kenny Omega. Omega comes out. The Bucks are out there. All the Elite members are out there dressed completely ridiculous. The Bucks get in Hangman's case in face a little bit. Dark Order is out there as well. And Hangman, when he finally lays down the challenge to Omega, Omega says, okay, but you're going to have to work for it or whatever. And instead of getting a title shot, he goes, not only are you going to get me, you're going to get all of us. You're going to get the entire Elite. And he proposes a 5-on-5 elimination match. So here in the main event, they would do a great casket match, and now we're going to get a chance to see them handle themselves in a Survivor Series elimination match in a couple of weeks, which I guess is going to be at Fight for the Fallen. So he's proposing a 5-on-5 tag team elimination match, all the members of the Elite against Hangman and some Dark Order guys. And if he does win that, then he will get his title shot. And Page agrees to that, but he says when they win, he gets a title shot. Not only does he get a title shot, but the Dark Order gets a shot at the tag team titles, which then Omega gets pissed about. And he goes, okay, I'll agree to that, but only if when we win. I think they tried to make a stipulation similar to what Cody has, to where Hangman cannot challenge. That's like his one and only chance or something like that. So it was a little bit convoluted, but basically what they're doing is just killing time until they get to the all-out match. Now you have to put some obstacles in front of Kenny, kind of the way Jericho's got some obstacles in front of him with MJF. It's going to be a similar deal here, and now they have to have a big match and a big victory and a 5-on-5 eliminator, which we will get in a couple of weeks. I think that will be at Fight for the Fallen, but I'm not sure the official date on that. I did find out just this week, did not even realize, I'm actually going to North Carolina for summer vacation here at the end of the month, and Fight for the Fallen is going to be in Charlotte on the Wednesday that I'm there, but I'm not going to be in Charlotte. I'm going to be at the beach. We thought about going. Elizabeth really wanted to go and mentioned it, but I was, we're just probably not going to make it. But I think that's going to be the match that's going to be on that show, I think. Will be a week from this coming Wednesday, I believe. So 5-on-5 tag elimination match coming up. You know Hangman is going to get the match with Kenny Omega, so I suppose they'll probably just win that. That will make it official, and then you can spend the entire month of August building Kenny and Adam. That'll be fun stuff. Really happy that that is going to likely be the title match for Kenny Omega at All Out, and he is going to drop that belt. 100%. After that, we get a Jericho interview backstage. This was good. He's backstage in a little dressing room getting interviewed. And in comes Shawn Spears with the most perfectly timed and executed chair shot to the throat that I've ever seen. Knocked Jericho right in his Adam's apple, and he's like, and he falls on the couch. Now, Spears had his hand over the chair, so he kind of caught him, but he caught him really stiffly, and Jericho goes down. He's choking. MJF shows up, and he kind of pins him down and says that next week begins the labors of Jericho. He's going to face Shawn Spears in a match, and the stipulation is, I think Spears, did I hear this right? Spears can use the chair, but Jericho can't. And then I think they whacked Jericho's injured arm with the chair. That was fun stuff. Santana and Ortiz also mess with Tully Blanchard backstage. They get him down. They threaten to beat him with a lead pipe or anything, but they don't. They let him go because he's an old man. And that was kind of funny. Christian took on Matt Hardy, got the victory over Matt Hardy. That was kind of fun. Matt Hardy is claiming exhaustion for the reason for the loss. He has not gotten any sleep. He hasn't slept at all in 72 hours, something to do with the birth of his daughter and a whole bunch of other stuff that's kept him awake. And that's the only reason he lost to Christian. Now, after the match, Luchasaurus kind of picks up Christian the way he picks up Jungle Boy, like kind of on his shoulders, and you could tell that Jungle Boy was like, what the fuck? So continuing the eventual and inevitable Christian and Jungle Boy feud, which is going to be coming up on the horizon. At some point, this is going to blow over, and one of them is going to turn on the other, probably going to be Christian. Oh my God, I loved the Miro promo. How good does the new TNT title look? I know this is like the third makeover it's gotten, but it looks really good. So Miro is just all over the place in this promo. He's fantastic. He starts it off by rhyming. I think he says, there once was a man who was rich, who had a hot wife who could do the splits, something like that. He said he's God's favorite champion. A lot of kind of like religious stuff in his promo, but he's like the only guy that can, really bring religion into his promos and not make me want to barf. I think it works perfectly for him, and I think it's great. And he's just such an awesome promo and hilarious fucking troll, and lifts up the new TNT title. It's got a white strap on it now, which you know how I feel about the classic Intercontinental title. I don't like white straps on my title belts, but I liked that one. And it looked really good. I just think it looks fantastic just with the Miro package. He looks really good with that TNT title, and I really like it. So, you know how WWE does side plates, for all their champions? Maybe the TNT title gets like a whole new custom makeover for each champion that holds it. That'll be tough to keep up with. They probably can't do that. But I do like the new rendition of this. It looks really good, and Miro's awesome. Loved Britt Baker's promo as well. She's becoming more and more of a star every week. Of course, next week she's got a big title match against Nyla Rose, which is interesting that's going to be her opponent, but I don't see Britt dropping it. You got to keep going with Britt. She just won it. She's got to be your face of the women's division, at least for a little while. She needs to be AEW's Charlotte. I hate to say it. Big win. I don't want to say big win, but good, impressive, just one-on-one outing for Sammy Guevara, defeating Wheeler Yuta. And pretty okay match there from what I saw. Yuka Sakazaki is back, and she defeated Penelope Ford, and that was pretty funny. She was back out there in full Yuka mode. That was all fun. And then, of course, in the main event, this is what I wanted to talk about. This was an absolutely brutal coffin match that main evented this show and really capped off an awesome night of wrestling. It was interesting that they were doing a coffin match. I talked about this before because back in the WWE, when they first did it, it was actually called a coffin match. I think at least in WWE, they did it with Undertaker and Kamala. And it was like, what the fuck, a coffin match? That is crazy. And it would eventually kind of evolve into a casket match. They would only call it a coffin match, I think, that one time. And then that became Undertaker's match for like 25, 30 years, something like that, or whatever it was. Undertaker would do the casket matches all throughout his time in WWE. Well, the Undertaker's retired now, and Kane is basically retired as well. And he's in the Hall of Fame. So there's really no reason in WWE to do a casket match anymore. You don't have anybody there. In a lot of ways, that match died with that gimmick. Not that you could still do it, but who's going to do it? Maybe Aleister Black, but he's in AEW now. So the fact that Darby Allin has taken this over and AEW is going to run with the coffin matches now, I was really interested to see how this would go. And I would like it if this turned into Darby's kind of match. It fits him. He does the coffin drop as his finisher and stuff. So having a coffin match, I think, works. And I kind of like that AEW has picked up the casket match ball and ran with it. And this thing was fucking awesome. AEW's first coffin match was better than WWE's first ever coffin match by a mile. This thing was incredible. And I loved that they didn't just copy what WWE did, that same formula. They had an actual coffin, like a wooden coffin like you would see in the old days, laying right there on the floor, not on rollers, not on wheels, not with a trap door under it so you could slide under the ring, just on the fucking floor, man. It didn't move or anything. It was just right there. And I loved that. I just loved that it was a little bit different. Now, Darby came out to the ring when they were doing their entrances. He came out with a steel plate like Bret Hart did with Goldberg, except instead of having it on his chest, he had it on his back. And he comes flying down to the ring and hits Ethan with like a coffin drop with the steel plate on his back. That was pretty cool. Scorpio Sky was hiding out in the coffin, so he was kind of hanging out there while they brought it out, I suppose. And he jumps out and attacks Darby Allin, which prompted Sting to come out and make the save, and I think they brawled out. So Sting was able to come out there and help Darby Allin out a little bit. As these guys continue to beat the shit out of each other, Ethan Page gets opened up on his forehead. He also starts to take apart the turnbuckles, and he starts unscrewing it and basically uses the big wrench and the big hook as a weapon against Darby Allin. Darby then reverses it, gets control of the turnbuckle hook, and actually fish hooks Ethan Page in the mouth with a metal piece. That looked pretty awesome, and he's wrenching back on it, and these guys are just brutalizing each other. Really nasty spot in the ring after that with the steel steps. They got broken ring ropes, they got wrenches, monkey wrenches, they got steel steps in the ring, and Ethan Page, I think he second rope razor's edges Darby onto the steel steps which are in the ring, and I swear those steps dented when he hit them. None of this was enough to get Darby Allin into the coffin, unfortunately, and in the end, Darby is actually able to take the skateboard and hit Page, I think, in the face with it, and he falls backwards right into the coffin, and they slam the door shut, and Darby Allin is your winner of the coffin match. And just for good measure, to add insult to injury, Darby climbs to the top rope. Now, keep in mind, the coffin is not raised on rollers. It's on the floor, on the ringside floor, and Darby is on the top rope, and he coffin drops himself through the coffin, which made it look like it was made out of legit wood. And the little, not the furring strips, but the little pieces of wood that stuck up to kind of hold the coffin in place, those were exposed when Darby crashed through the wooden panel, which was probably some lighter wood. It wasn't the cardboard that Jericho fell through. It was probably, a little bit more sturdier wood. But seeing the pieces that were on the side that lined the side of the coffin, it's like, man, if he would have just missed by 3 or 4 inches to the right or the left, he would have landed his back right on one of those things that are just sticking up in a point, and he could have done some serious damage. So he had to jump backwards from the top rope and made sure he landed inside that coffin perfectly. And you got to remember, Ethan Page is under there. He's under there. Imagine being down there waiting for that. It was like, it reminded me a little bit of Vince in the trash can when Shawn did the elbow drop off the ladder at WrestleMania, and I always laughed the way Jericho put it. He's like, "Is it now? Is it now? Is it now? Is it now?" And that's the way I think of Ethan Page, like in there. I'm sure the refs were shouting like, "Here it comes!" But still, I'd hate to be under there just waiting for this fucker to fall on me. So that was just an absolutely brutal match. Darby Allin, he is 110 pounds, and he puts his body through the same type of punishment that Mick Foley did, who had a lot more extra cushion and padding to deal with, and it's probably only a matter of time before Darby snaps a limb, something awful. But big win for him here. Thought it was an awesome main event and an absolutely perfect and fitting way to close out this incredible AEW Dynamite. So bravo to AEW. They had a great show here from top to bottom that the crowd enjoyed, and that's what it's all about. And they got rewarded with a good rating. Like I said, they drew over 1 million, and that's really positive news because this is now the fans are back. Now the fans are back, so I think the fans at AEW shows are just going to be more energetic, I guess, than WWE shows. I think WWE shows are going to be hot for a while, but when everything starts settling and everybody just starts getting used to fans being back, that's going to be when you're really going to tell the difference and see which company can sustain that level of excitement from their audience, more. And I think AEW, based on the type of shows they're producing, are kind of ahead of that right now. So we'll see. Either way, I think we're looking forward to one exciting month of wrestling. Next month through SummerSlam is going to be pretty damn good on both sides of this equation, next month and a half, because we got Money in the Bank. We've got some AEW themed shows. Then we got SummerSlam weekend. Then we've got All Out. This is going to be some fun shit, man, in the next few weeks. So buckle up, I guess. We also on Dynamite got a promo for the Rampage show, the Friday show that I believe debuts on August 13th. Just a little video package hyping that, so it looks like they're starting to piece together all the details for that show. That starts in a month, so that'll be interesting to see. And, of course, next week for Fyter Fest Night 2, on the lineup, we've got Britt Baker defending the AEW title against Nyla Rose. We've got Jericho versus Shawn Spears in that weird chair stipulation match. We've got Orange Cassidy taking on The Blade, and Moxley taking on Lance Archer in a Texas death match for the IWGP United States title. That's on tap for next week on Dynamite. That's going to be fun, too. I'm not going to be home to watch that live, but I'll be up here next week for a review of that. And it should be a blast. So, yeah, all next week I will be here, but then the week after that, I'll be gone for a full week, and that's going to span 2 Monday Night Raws on the 26th and August 2nd. those are my travel days. I leave the 26th, come back on the 2nd. So the likelihood of a Raw stream on the 2nd is pretty unlikely, but it could happen. But all throughout that week, you're not going to hear from me, but I am going to have a SummerSlam review in the can, and I'm going to release that while I'm gone, probably in the middle of the week. And 1 week from this Sunday, week after Money in the Bank, that's the night before I leave for vacation, we're going to do a watch-along. We're going to do a classic SummerSlam watch-along of SummerSlam 1998, Highway to Hell. We're going to watch that together 1 week from Sunday. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the notifications bell, because I'm going to put links to all this stuff up this week. So you just got to keep a lookout for that, and it should be a fun next 10 days on the channel. Lots of streams, lots of stuff happening, and yeah, wrestling's back, and I'm excited. Let me say goodbye and hello again to a few more in the chat, knock out some super chats, and then I'm going to get out of here because I got to head to work. And like I said, the next time you will hear from me is going to be Saturday for Money in the Bank predictions. Keep that in mind. Oh, no, I got that one already. Antoine, I did not. I got to get you. Antoine, sorry I missed that one earlier, man, and thanks for the $5. I think they go strip him, and Joe says no, not allow how we do stuff here. Yeah, I think something like that is likely too, Antoine. I could totally see that, because really, in reality, Karrion Kross put his hands on official. It's not out of the realm of possibility that you would strip a champion for doing that. You've done it before. But since Samoa Joe is involved, you just know it's going to be Joe. So I can see maybe Regal out there about to make that decision, and Joe comes out and says, no, that's not what we do, and I got news for you or something. I'm cleared, so how about we put the title again on the line against me or something like that. I can see them teasing the strip and then not doing the strip. You know what I mean? But yeah, when you choke out Samoa Joe, you going to wrestle Samoa Joe. It doesn't not work that way. They're not just going to change how they've done shit for 60 years, So that's going to be interesting. I'm just ready to see it. Yuka has the best pants. Yes, she does. Is the Buried Alive match kind of retired? I guess, not officially. The Buried Alive match and casket matches aren't officially retired, but kind of they are, because you don't really have a use for them. The only other one that kind of did matches like that sometimes would have been like Mankind, and he's not around either. So yeah, they should, AEW should take that one too. Take the Buried Alive match. What will they call it? Dirt nap match or something. Walter is injured. I did see that. Mohammed, it's okay that you're late. It's all good, man. It's all good. Oh, no, I did not. Transferring heat. Thank you for that. Tamina has qualified as the last participant in the women's Money in the Bank match. Okay. There was one outstanding spot still available. I thought they were going to do that on SmackDown, but it's going to be Tamina. Okay. Wasn't aware of that, but now the field is set for the men and the women. And I'm going to do some thinking on that in the next couple of days, and then on Saturday, I will give you my full predictions for that big, long 5-match card, but I think they're going to have some interesting stuff go down. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. I got to get out of here. I got stuff to do for the rest of the day, so I appreciate you being here. Thanks again. Make sure you subscribe, like the video on the way out the door, and I will see you Saturday for Money in the Bank predictions. We'll be up at the same time for that. It'll be 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern.